How are you doing? Greetings from a still locked down Brisbane. Sending my love and care to Sydney, which is deep into a lockdown right now. Melbourne, the people over there, they always seem to be a day or two away from a lockdown lately. And of course, anywhere where COVID has took a grip. I mean, where hasn't it taken a grip in our rugby league world? One of the questions I got online from a rugby league coach member actually was, what's the biggest lesson you've ever heard or ever taken on board as a coach? And before I answer that, this is my shirt, one of my shirts from the St. Greg's coaching days between 2010 and 2012. So first of all, I expect abuse off Messrs. Kiernan, Cerrone, Nelson, Newell, etc. For how this used to fit me better 10 years ago. But there's a reason I'm wearing it, and that will all become apparent soon. I'm reflecting a little bit on some things. Anyway, what's the biggest lesson I've learned as a coach in my time? I think it's 22 years now I've done non-stop. The biggest lesson is, as a coach, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. I'll repeat that. It's not what you say, it's about what they hear. I think when I think about my own journey as a coach, I used to try and impress people when I was younger with how much I knew about something, and I thought that the longer I spoke for and the more technical I sounded and the more smart I sounded, the better a coach I was. When I think back to what I was like when I was in my early to mid-20s as a coach, if people were watching me, I used to coach to them rather than the players I was coaching. And as I got older and as I got more experienced, I realised that anything from 10 to 60, 70 or 80% of what I was saying was just going one ear out the other or straight over the top. And I think the reason is we play a sport that is brutal. We play a sport that contains a lot of white noise, like I suppose any sport does. When you play against someone, in any sport or a team, there's a lot of white noise, there's a lot of talk, there might be an atmosphere from a crowd. And I think you've got to prepare yourself for battle. You've got to prepare yourself for being hit and hitting. And a lot of the content you give to players, unless you've really reinforced it time after time after time after time after time, will go in one ear out the other or over the heads. And I guess rather than just saying that my communication has shriveled or become less, I've actually learned how to become more economical. So say exactly the same thing, but do it in one line or one paragraph. Whereas when I was young, it was 20 paragraphs. And I think so many coaches get promoted and so many coaches try and impress by coaching to an audience. They come up with big, thick playbooks and wonder why their players don't carry out 2/3 of what they carried out. I did a study at university once on a Super League team, and I looked at their playbook, and I can promise you that it was something in the region of one play was done in 90% of the games, the second play was done in 75% of the games, the third play was done in about 50%, and the other 23 plays were done occasionally. Yet they spent so much time in training working on those things, and it just literally wasn't relevant for when they played. Also, many of the coaching messages at halftime and full-time and pre-match contained references to those plays, but they weren't happening. Why didn't you put that play on? Why didn't you want to put that play on? But that's a different issue entirely. Why aren't those plays happening? And over the years, I learned that so many coaches were coaching in this, if you like, this pseudo coaching land. They were trying to sound smart. They were trying to give sound bites. If they did TV interviews or radio interviews, they were making them sound like the most intelligent man or woman in the room. And if you think about some of the best coaches that exist in rugby league and even in sport, when they talk, even to the media, you don't get confused by what they say. So, for example, Wayne Bennett, you left in no doubt about what what he says. I'll talk a bit more about Wayne Bennett in a minute. Jack Gibson was famously economical with his words. Craig Bellamy, I think when you hear him talk, you don't get confused at all. You clearly know what he's saying. You clearly know the message he's trying to get across. Going back to Wayne Bennett, during my life, or my coaching life, Wayne Bennett has been the coaching master. And that means that when people have listened to him or gone to seminars he may have done or gone to watch him train, if you like, the people who don't get it have been watching Wayne Bennett and thinking, he's not that technical, or he doesn't say that much, or he doesn't do that much. Well, actually, the difference is what he actually does is actually really potent. He obviously, when it comes to what he does, he obviously delegates things to staff, and those staff carry out a lot of what he wants. But he is the check and balancer. He does the checks and balances. He does the quality control, and his messages are really succinct and clear. And I think if you look at Wayne Bennett and you look at the players who've played underneath him, they all, almost to a man, speak in the highest regard about him, and always will. And it's about man management and how they were treated as a person. So I suppose the best and biggest message I can give to everyone is be aware of what you're actually saying and the messages you're giving out. How many of them are important? And can you group those messages into one thing? So, for example, let's talk about all the components about controlling the ruck, right? About what you're doing there. If you really want to break it down into every little nuance, you could be talking about hundreds of things. Whereas you might be able to group that in just 2 or 3, which is something I practice in my coaching all the time. One thing I do as a coach now is I assess how much information my players can take on. If you're, back in the day when I used to coach an England Universities team, for example, they were gluttons for information. They wanted loads. Other teams in the past, I've kept it really simple, including a team I've coached recently. So have a think about that. It's not what you say, it's what they hear. And humans are known to only be able to take in a few messages at a time and really deliver on them. As I said in the last video, I still want to take a community coach to the Rugby League, but with lockdown in Brisbane at the minute, I'll just put that on hold. But if you want to send in something, please do. I need you to share a post tagging in at Rugby League Coach on Facebook or Instagram, just talking positively about Rugby League Coach. That's all I want. Share it with all your friends and tag us in and talk about your experience, be it the page, the website, Aim Higher, whatever it may be. On the subject of Aim Higher, I'm getting close to announcing a few new venues, but again, lockdown is causing a few little issues there. I still plan to come to Sydney. I still plan to come to Melbourne, so if you booked in for those, can't wait to see you, and we'll work it all out, and we will get there eventually, won't we? All the best, everyone, and stay safe, and hello to everyone at St. Greg's.